Hey, welcome here. Nice to see you, Carmen.
Hello, how are you?
Good, I'm good. It's starting the Monday, but we have an exciting news today because we are starting this roundtable discussion. This is a new section in Esports Business Live, and we are really happy to start it. That's right, Carmen.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're going to be treating this topic about employment within the esports. We're going to touch a little bit on the different types of, relationships between clubs, businesses, the employees, but mostly we've got three top guests here today to discuss it and start insight on this topic.
So really excited to see our guests. But first of all, we have to introduce a little bit about each other. So Carmen, can you start?
Hello everyone, I'm Caroline, also known as Carmen Junquera. Wow, I can say new things myself. I'm a caster for WREC right now, and well, I'm a host as well, so caster, host, whatever you want it to be. And now it's your turn, Yasmina.
My turn is I'm intellectual property lawyer, but we are not talking about law. Well, in a kind of way, yes, but not so specifically. So don't worry, our guests. And thank you so much for being here. And we are going to introduce to our guests. So first, Josh, thank you so much for being here. Ana, thank you so much. And Googly, that I didn't say Coco.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. We are really excited to have this round discussion. We are going to talk about different topics, but first of all, we have to introduce our guests. So, Carmen, may you start with yours?
Yeah, of course, we've got here, actually, Josh was our guest in last season. He provided us with an amazing explanation about what he was doing back at Team X7. I remember he was hinting at something maybe happening in the future, and it did happen. You're right now competing at an NLC, it's the ERL for League of Legends there for the Nordic countries, including Great Britain, and you are the founder and owner, so welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Happy to have you again. And now we have Ana. I'm really happy to have you here because actually Emilio steals us for us because we want you at the beginning of the first season, but we're not going to tell that. Emilio, you still me my guest, but it's okay. And Ana actually is the CEO for Squarebox. She has a great field in the industry. She has been done a lot of stuff. She worked previously as a head of ESL, so that's a huge step as well, and now she's working by her home, and she was a former player as well, and especially for shooter games, I think it was CSGO. Sorry if I'm wrong. But thank you so much for being here, Ana.
Thank you. It's been CSGO and CS 1.6 as well.
Wow.
You are amazing. And now, but last, we have Googly. Thank you so much for being here. You are the director of the sport director, and also the head of Sorry so much for I'm so wrong. It's Monday, guys. Sorry for that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And as well, I used to play CS just like Ana. I come from a different background though. Counter-Strike Source more than 1.6.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we've got a little bit of everything. We've got players, team owners. Now Ana with the Squarebox. Honestly, I'm really wanting to sign up for one of the courses that you're offering. Every time I see it on my TL, I'm like, maybe this is the right time to do it. But in any case, Yasmina, I'm going to leave you the honor of starting this roundtable, this panel.
So, as you know, the employment in sport is quite important nowadays, and it's a topic that is not, we can say that it's always going to be there. We are going to be worried about it. And I know that some way, both of you, well, each of you have been in, I don't know how to explain it, sorry so much. I feel nervous because we have an honor guest here. And I hope you hear me properly because I think I have some problems with my microphone. I hope you hear me well, of course. So the first topic that we are going to talk about, it's a little bit how you feel is the employment and esport ecosystem in your own countries, if you have like some specific regulation, if it's not, and what you think if should be some specific regulation or not in your field.
We can start with Josh, for example, or Ana. Ana, you were about to talk. There we go. Yes, we'll start with you.
Shoot first.
I was just want to say that in Spain we have a huge ecosystem. A lot of things are happening. We have a lot of companies doing a lot of things around esports and video games. That's a very good thing. The not so good thing is when we talk about players and in general about regulations, that is something we are still not so advanced about it, because well, at least when I was a player there was nothing for sure. We didn't even have a salary. But when I had my own project with Baskonia some years ago, I remember we didn't know exactly how to have the players under contract in a way that it was not bad for them, but also not bad for us. So it was a little bit complicated. I'm not a person that knows a lot about contracts, so I had in the company people that was good at that, and still they didn't know how to do it. So it was not irregular or illegal or anything like that. So I guess we are not so much further these days, but maybe I don't know, maybe Josh that has a team nowadays can tell you more about it. But
yeah, I mean, so I'm on the Isle of Man, which is a little bit different to the UK, or quite a lot different to the UK. I think we're still steps behind Scandinavian countries, which seem to actively encourage esports as a potential career path. Although the UK is definitely starting to step up, and the Isle of Man as well, in terms of encouraging that. I think there's definitely a way to go. We've brought on players from Denmark and Sweden and Norway, and for those players who are still in school or education, it's a bit surreal for me to hear that if they get signed by a team, they can literally get signed off by their teacher to continue their studies a year later or 2 years later, once they're done with that competitive split or tournament. In the UK, at least as far as I know, that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't be able to go to your teacher and say, can I take 6 months off to go play a game professionally and I'll continue my studies, in half a year's time. That's a point I wish we could get to, and I think it's more and more so looking like we will get to that point. Probably a couple of years down the line, though. I don't think it's going to change overnight. So, on the Isle of Man, I kind of wear two hats. So I've got my X7 hat as the founder and CEO, but in my full-time role, I'm the esports executive for the government over here, or one of two. It's me and a colleague. So we're really trying to drive that regulation piece and bring more esports business to the island. So, it's exciting times. I think there's a lot of room to grow.
And for you, Kukli, why it's your experience?
Well, I still have two different backgrounds now. So right now I live in Spain, so I follow more or less what Ana said in that sense. But I'm originally from Italy, and we're even further back probably than Isle of Man, UK, Spain, everyone else. And competing for me at the start, and then starting to work and trying to get people to play, and even now it's still hard in Italy, especially because it's not seen as a job. It's slowly starting to be seen right now. And so it's evolving every day, It's evolving every day. It's getting better every day, but I think steps by steps. It's 17 years now I'm in esports. And I guess that from the start up until now, we have done an evolution, which is incredible, to be honest.
Okay, that's so really many things to improve, many things to be changed still. I mean, obviously, I love what Josh was saying about Nordic countries. I wish what do I mean I wish? I'm not a pro player. I've never been good at games, so not that I would have been able to ask for something like that. But I want to ask, for example, Ana, in your case, could you tell us when you started competing, if you think that will have been helpful for you?
Well, I think when I was competing, it was still so difficult to imagine what would happen afterwards. Like, we all dream that one day I want to have this as a professional thing, or I want to play on a big stage. But it happened over time, and it's something that now, of course, it's easy to say, of course, why not? I would like to have a salary and a regulation, and everything is always. You were talking about the Nordics, Josh, and it's an area or a place where they have always been ahead when it comes about esports. So they've been visionaries on this sense, and I think we all try to follow on a way. But it's so difficult to make all countries be following the same kind of path when there's not even a regulation that is kind of, or that works for everyone. And we are talking about esports, which is not like traditional sports where you have no one owning the game. We always talk about owning the game, and in this case we do have companies owning the game, so that makes it a little bit more difficult even So I like 2 years ago, I was at the European Parliament in Brussels trying to do the Esports Federation, European Esports Federation. That's something that was a trial, but I think it didn't go any further because it's so difficult. Not everyone that should be involved was involved there. So that's what you need to make happen first. I guess it's that the way it has to happen. I don't know if I make sense, but
Yeah.
No, you make perfect sense. And I mean, for example, I wanted to point out what you say. For example, as you mentioned it, that for example, the Isle of Man is trying to regulate it in somehow, or did it? I didn't understand in there because
Yeah. So part of our role within government, we can see there's definitely bodies that exist. Maybe there's more bodies than's necessary. I think everybody's trying to do the same thing, but it might be a bit more useful if people just linked arms and did it together rather than everyone creating their own governing body. So we're trying to tackle it in the best way possible. There's a lot of vectors you need to cover. For us, we're looking at things such as protection of prize pools and prize winnings, instant payout upon a tournament completing. You could use like escrow services or something like that to hold the funds in place and release them upon whichever team wins, because there's definitely been cases of corruption and maybe prizes being held and not paid out or in full. A big education piece around educating the players around taxes and how to properly manage their money as well.
That's a great initiative, really.
Yeah, I mean, teams are going to be quite resistant. I think, so the Isle of Man has a good history with e-gaming and the betting space. Regulation is obviously a huge part of that. I think esports is still very much in its early stages, and so regulation is always going to be tried and tested, and some teams are going to be a bit more hesitant than others. Even TOs and stuff, I'm not sure how they're going to react to certain pieces of regulations. Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's an exciting one. Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. As I say, I don't think it's going to change overnight, but over the course of the next few years, I think there's going to be some big progress.
No, but at least it's a step. And quickly, as you say, in Italy, then it's really, really a step ahead of Spain. Then it's really like that. And if you're from
step behind, I would say.
Step behind. Sorry.
Yeah. No, like there's also a major problem with prize pools in general in Italy. Like Josh was saying, like for him, he's trying to make it so prize pool are regulated and all of that. Italy has a complete problem, really big problem about it, because the way you pay prizes in Italy is through like golden coins. It's like the only way you can pay prizes in Italy in competitions. Now there's obviously various governing bodies trying to solve this situation, but it's always a mess too. And that's probably why also the reason like there's never really been any big tournaments in Italy. I think the biggest one we're talking about Face It, and then before that probably WCG 2006. Like nothing much more before that or in the middle. But it's a lovely place to do things, and also Rainbow Six tried to do that. But I don't know if the governing body for them would be Italy or would be considered wherever their main company is, even though they did the event in Italy. That's why it's a bit hard to organize it, but it's a very important part. And also, like, there's been a ton of times of people going to tournaments in various countries, not knowing the laws of that country, expecting a prize pool, and maybe there's like 50% taxes just if you're not from that country, Like, these are all important parts that everyone should know and everyone should understand. And it also puts in bad light both us as an organization and the players, because when they don't know, they expect us to pay full, and maybe we're like, hey, you guys, you need to know there's these sort of taxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I just want to drop a question, and then we will stop. We will try to do this second topic, but I would just wanted to know, especially for Gugli and Ana, if you think it's, for example, you mainly work as well in Spain. So I would like to know if you think it's necessary to have a specific regulation in relation with employment, or if you think if the government start to get inside, it's going to be worse, because I think Spanish thinks that about the government nowadays. Sorry, I mean, I feel like the Isle of Man actually worries about the ecosystem and try to understand it, but I don't feel the same nowadays with Spain. I would like to know your insight with this topic.
That's very tricky because like you in a clear mind with like no bad thoughts and all like that, you would like to have a regulation from people that can regulate things on the very nice and perfect way. And I mean, that's like daydreaming, because the reality, we all know it's never going to be what we would like it to be. That's my feeling. So yeah, of course, I like things to happen, but wait, like wait, let me see first. What are you thinking about? Because I don't trust you.
I like at the end you have the mentality of a lawyer. First, let me see here what you put in here.
I'm not gonna sign that yet.
Not yet. Let me read it. And you, Googly?
Yeah, I guess I'm literally in the same boat, but also on the other side, it's you need to sort of understand who you're talking with, and like most of the times in esports is yes, I've had lots of bad experiences, but I've also had good experiences, and it's just about talking with the person on the other side. Like most of the times now, the people I work with is people I've known for years, or people that other people I've known for years. And yes, we were always careful about everything, but it's mostly like, I'll do this, you do that, and it works out. And the important is, though, I tell all the players and everything is make sure that whatever you sign, whatever you look at, like you're 100% sure. And if you're not, let's talk about it. We can, even if it takes 1 week, 2 weeks more. Like the important is that once it's signed, everyone is happy with what's been written.
Which is honestly really, I think, really valuable from you that you are providing this information to the players, because as you said before, many times they go in without knowing what they're going to expect, what they can receive back, and what a fair treatment for them will be like. So yeah, thank you for providing that information as well. And now it's about time to move on to the second topic as well, Yasmina.
I will start. I was thinking that you, Carmen, will be the one who will honor me and talk about the second topic.
Of course. Okay, of course. Okay, so a second topic brings up the different modalities of contracts. But we said this wasn't going to be real technical, really focused on like law stuff. I want to talk more about the way that you will ideally like to have your players, employees, etc. Employed as in, will it be like autonomous? Well, that's in Spanish. Will you like them to be independent professionals, part-time, full-time? What do you think is the most appropriate and most adequate for esports, considering we've got an industry where players live teams perhaps 1 month in, 2 weeks in? Let's just start with Google, for example.
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part they were saying.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so essentially, knowing that esports, sometimes players do leave quite early. They want to leave the contract in like 2 weeks in, maybe 1 month in before the competition ends. What do you think is the best suited contract for this kind of, for our ecosystem?
It's really hard, to be honest, because everyone has different needs and different wants. Usually what I say is having a player on my team that doesn't want to be on my team is counterproductive for me and for him. People will force it, obviously, and they always try to do it. So I will be permissive on certain things and not permissive on others. But I will also talk to them and say, hey, let's say the competition lasts 3 months. You want to go out earlier because there's a bigger team, or there's another tournament you want to play, or you don't fit in the team or whatever. You need to finish the competition. If there's no other way we can finish it without being at the same level we want to be at. You took, at least out of respect, finish out the competition, and then you're happy to do whatever you want. But there's usually a talk with that.
Do you go about like part-time contracts, full-time, if you can say it?
It really depends on the person, and it really depends on the law you're following. Right now, I'm following Spanish law, and so it depends what they're getting money-wise, what they're playing, how much they're playing. There's a lot of things that come into this.
Okay, let's follow up with Josh, for example.
Yeah, I mean, so Clash has been around for a lot longer than X7 has, but we will sort of follow in a similar way. I think in terms of part-time, full-time contracting work, it would differ from role to role. Some of our staff, as an example, are just on part-time work. However, most of our players are on full-time, and most of the coaching staff as well. So, yeah, trying to follow along with the relevant UK laws, not so much Isle of Man, because we have a UK company as well. It's just trying to, like Googly said, everyone has different needs and wants. If players want to leave early, then we can have those conversations. But you've obviously got players with buyout clauses in their contracts, and other teams will come looking. That's a bridge you need to cross at some point with some of your players. So that's a learning curve for myself. Obviously, I was once a player in League like 8 years ago, and even going back to what Ana and Googly said, although 8 years ago doesn't sound like a long time ago, I wasn't on a salary, and the contracts were so loosely written, so many holes in them. So I wanted to make sure that when I was the one responsible, trying to make them as watertight as possible. Working with corporate service providers on the island and lawyers and people who know their stuff to make sure that it's not going to bite us later down the line. Trying to make sure it's done properly, which I think some of our counterparts might not do.
Okay, let's go with you, Annette.
Well, I'm not working with players now for a while, but I think we are pretty tight or limited because we try to fit everything into what we know. Like, where do we place esports? It is entertainment. It is sports. What it is. So, or for example, the same with the contracts. Do they have to be like this or like that? Well, I think we first need to understand our industry, which is not this or this other industry, is that one, the esports one, and we need to work on what this industry natures is like, what it needs, what the players need, why do they need it that way and not another way. So as long as we try to fit our own industry into other things, it's going to be difficult because it's not going to fit most of the times. So I know that sounds pretty like, okay, whatever, you want to do a new whole thing only for esports. Yeah, well, I do. I think it would make sense and it would be easier for everyone, but it's not that easy to make it happen. I know, I understand.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially how quick the industry is growing as well. The numbers for some of these tournaments are starting to exceed traditional sporting events. So it's only a matter of time before esports makes it more and more onto mainstream media. I don't know.
But I have to say, I'm really happy with you guys because at least every one of you say, I will employ. So it's really nice to see that you are all in the legal page of it and you're worried about your condition of your employers. That's always nice to hear, especially as a lawyer. But now I would like to focus more in this topic regarding this, because that sometimes it could happen that there are some practicals that are not according to the law, we will say that. And in that case, I would like to know, for example, with you, Ana, did you heard as you were a player, like this kind of practice that they were not legal? Do you think it was because it was the ecosystem at that time, it was starting to grow, or maybe it was people were taking advantage of this starting to grow the industry? And if you feel like it's getting better now and people are taking this more seriously and they're trying to contract their employees, like saying, you're a player, I understand that you maybe want to finish early because you maybe want to go to another team, or maybe you wanted to finish this competition. But I would like to know if this kind of practice is somehow getting better and more professionalized in this sector.
In my case, maybe it's very easy to make this, like, to say yes, it changed, and it changed a lot. Why? Because when I was playing, we didn't even have a contract. I didn't have to sign anything. The first few years, nothing at all. And I was paid maybe with a T-shirt or a Ventrilo server, or a CS server, and that was everything you could get. There was nothing else. There was not even the idea that at some point you could sign a contract. So of course it got better. Now, at least in Spain, there are huge teams: Mad Lions, Giants, and Movistar Riders, and all the players do have a contract, and many of the content creators as well. So it's a whole different thing if you compare with when I was a player myself.
That's really happy to have you here because we can have this appreciation. And sorry, Carmen, go ahead.
These ancient stories.
Ancient, but yet like 8 years will be at the same point. Like, oh my gosh,
True.
remember 8 years ago. So I'm also interested because we're talking from the point of view of the players to the teams. But has it ever happened to you, for example, Josh, that a player has gone into negotiations thinking, is there a way to kind of trick this kind of part of the contract for taxing purposes? Or like, have you ever had someone trying to do a little bit of a trick with that?
No, touch wood. We haven't had a player try and trick us. I'd like to think that our contracts are, fairly written and written in the right way. I don't know whether any of our players have legal advisors or lawyers, but nonetheless, we sit down with the players, go through the contracts one-on-one thoroughly, make sure they understand every point. It's not just a case of emailing it to them saying, right, crack on, send us once it's signed and we'll have a look. We want to make sure that they understand what they're getting into. Each contract will be different and tailored to our players. So, now, if you look at where we were last year, where predominantly all of our players were from the UK or Ireland, we've now recently signed 2 players from South Korea, which involved, sorting insurance, visas, relocating them. So it's a huge jump and a huge learning curve for myself and some of our staff as well. But it's a challenge that we welcome, and it's only going to allow us to become a bigger and better organization. And I think if we want to compete on the top level, we're going to need to cross these bridges at some point and learn how to relocate and facilitate players from all areas of the world. So touch wood, to answer your question, sorry, a bit long-winded. No, we haven't had anybody try and trick us. And hopefully it'll stay that way. Yeah.
And now we can ask you as well if you have this previous experience. We will touch wood for you as well.
No, yeah, from my side, I think I've had a bit of both as a player and as now working for an org. Some players not understanding certain parts of the contract after, certain other players feeling like they wanted to change the contract like 1 month after, 2 months after. I've had all of that, but to be honest, no major problems as of right now. I feel like you still talk, and as long as you respect the players, you respect the person, and you command respect from them as well, and you treat the thing as business at the same time and as 2 human beings, rather than it's this or that and that's it. It usually works out, to be honest.
Perfect. I'm really happy to hear. And Jessa, I wanted to ask you, because it occurs to me right now, and I know it's out of the topic, but Googly, from your side, you feel like maybe sometimes the reason why they don't understand the contract is because at the end the players are really young. 16 years or so on. They don't have a former previous employment, so maybe they don't have this mentality that we have already. Like, we have to work at the end. It's a work.
Yes, I agree. One thing we do, for example, which has been very important for us, is whatever person we sign which is under 18, we talk to their parents. It's a must for us to talk to their parents. Like, we don't accept signing someone without having talked to their parents, even though a lot of the kids try. There's also another part where it's like we make sure that they do well in school and they go to school. So if anything happens and they don't go to school, if the parents are okay with it, then that's on their side. But if they're not, then we take precautions as well from our side to make sure that they do their stuff at school and stuff like that. Both me and the person that lives with me here in Spain that works with QLASH, we've both done degrees in university. He's done a doctor degree, I've done an engineering degree, and so we understand how important it is to have a plan B, especially because I see a lot of players that just look at playing, streaming, or whatever it is, and you can make a really good money, a lot of money, but you still need to have a plan B when you finish, because you never know. Especially with esports right now, if your game is not one of the most popular ones, like, it could fall off one day to the other, and you could be left with nothing, to be honest.
But that's great, the practice that you're doing. And you, Ana and Jos, what do you think about this topic regarding with the young players? And I was one of them. But
Once
not
I
so
was
many years
young.
ago. No, come on, you're amazing. You're young, Ana. You are young.
Thank you. I think it's really, really important that the organization is somehow backing you on that. It's important. It's important for the player. It's important for the parents. It's also for the own organization important, because what you do speaks about you. So that's, I think, a plus for any organization that is taking care of these kind of things. And well, with the Squarebox, what we are doing is telling everyone that studying is important also when you are in the industry, that you can continue the whole time improving your skills or learning something new, because this is going also very fast. And maybe today you want to be a player, but tomorrow you want to be content creator, and the next day you want to be a marketing manager on esports. So you really need to have a plan B and C and D at some point.
This is something that I also wanted to ask you, Anna, about Squarebox specifically, because I want to ask you about what percentage of your students are minus 18?
Not as much. Like it depends on what they are studying, what they picked. But for the business titles, you have people over 22, 25, or people that just finished a degree or things like that. For other shorter titles, we have younger people, but not so much under 18, no. And we also spoke with parents at some point, like they call and I want to know what you're doing, why is this important? I've never seen such a school like yours online. Is this for real? Is there a university behind or not? They have a lot of questions, because I'm still on the phone. They have a lot of questions because of course it's pretty new, and even my parents, when I was playing until now, all this time, they still don't really fully understand what am I doing, or what is your job? I don't know. She's working now in Germany, now in Spain. They don't really kind of catch it fully because it's new and it goes pretty quick. And so imagine the parents now, they really need to know this, and giving them this information is precious as well from our side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, soon I'll be joining those students, so I mean,
yeah. And
Cool.
actually, I hope our audience, if they don't follow, I follow Squarebox because I think they do a lot of them and a lot of courses. So please, a little bit of publicity here, advertisement here. And of course, yours, I would like to know your point of view, because I don't know if in Ireland you parents are so worried. I imagine yes, but Spaniards, we are like so Mediterraneans, we are like so I would say so worried about the kids. We don't want it to go away because we don't know what's going to happen for them. So I don't know if maybe you have a different mindset in this area.
I think, touching back on the point I made earlier, the Isle of Man's renowned for its e-gaming culture. A lot of gambling companies come to the island and set up here. But they like to call it gaming and not, they call it e-gaming or gaming. So most parents, when they think of esports, they immediately think of gaming and then associate it with betting. So there's a huge educational piece on the island, especially going around, going into businesses, because most of these kids' parents are obviously working in these companies locally, and telling them and teaching them the difference between esports and e-gaming and completely separating them. So Chris Kizak, who you've had on as a guest in the past, he does a lot of good work grassroots-wise on the Isle of Man. Got a few other people like David Vogel as well, who are very active in the grassroots scene on the island. It's a huge educational piece, but we're making a lot of progress. And I think the Isle of Man doesn't really produce many esports athletes or anything like that. So in terms of educating them on what they can do after a successful esports career, it's not at the top of our priority list. But from an organization's point of view, from X7, then yes, it's something that we'll look into, speaking to our players about, what they're going to do next. But I think they're a few years off, I think, coming to the end of their careers yet. So, yeah.
We will see, but I'm happy to see how is it working in the Isle of Man. And now, Carmen, you think we will start with the third topic here? This one, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but please just talk about your former experience and how you feel. But in this case, it's something that as a lawyer, of course, I found it fascinating and at the same time quite difficult, especially in this ecosystem. And it's more related with, for example, what would happen when you wanted to contract or hire players that are from other countries, especially that it's difficult when we are talking about other members that are not part of the EU, and this can be really complicated. And for example, for your side, Anna, when you were a former player, you used to actually travel around the world. How was your experience? As you say, you didn't have any contract, but I don't know if your parents were worried about it, but I imagine.
At some point, yes. Like, where are you going? Who are you going with? What's happening? But for me, it has been the best experience in my life, even though there was nothing, like no staff next to us, no no one
What?
experience that could tell us what to do. Like stuff. I mean, like a team that could, that people, the coach, nothing. We had nothing. We just were traveling together. We were 5 women or girls traveling around Europe and also in the US. And I was somehow doing I don't know, the mom role. I had all the things, like all the papers. I knew which plane we were going to take. I knew which bus, which train. The others were like, well, what's next?
Oh.
We're following. And I took that role like naturally, but for sure there had to be someone at some point to do something like that for us, because it was so exhausting for me to do that. Then in game I was in-game leader, and then I was a player, so it was 3 roles on one for a person. Is like now I don't know how am I still alive, but it's been hard, but a lot of fun. I've learned a lot of things. It's been a great experience that I would recommend everyone. Not in my conditions, maybe in the actual ones, but it's been amazing, yeah.
And for example, for you, Googly, and you're working in a team, how difficult is it, for example, to hire players who are from all the countries? Because as far as I understand, Clash also works with South America. If I'm correct, maybe I'm wrong. Sorry about that. If you can, but I feel like it's quite complicated, this topic, especially as a team when we started and trying to bring them, and sometimes even the regulation doesn't help you at all with this kind of topics. So I would like to know how you manage it as a team, how you try to solve it, if you have been having problems with this situation, and so on.
It really depends, because sometimes we have just opened in South America, but we're still opening offices and everything and doing all the stuff good with there. So, and that's not really from my side of things. So I guess someone else would know better. But it really depends on, like, for example, are we signing them and then bringing them over to the country to play, or are we signing them and they're playing from their own country? It's also talking to them and understanding what the laws are from their side of the country, because a lot of times we don't know. So, like, it's either talking to our lawyers and making sure they find out, or talking themselves with, a lot of them have parents that maybe already know the laws and stuff like that, and they help out, and then it's just making a contract that can be the best for both sides, to be honest.
That's good to know, and especially to know that the lawyers, if we are any lawyers here reading, we have future here in the esports ecosystem, so and learn about employment law and other countries, though, if it's possible. And you, Josh, how was your experience in this sector?
Yeah, I mean, Googly just touched on it then. Bringing players across, it has been a learning curve, as I said earlier. I've heavily relied or leaned upon the experience of coaches who've been in the scene for years, in the esports scene for years in that role, and have prior experience working with players from different nationalities, building teams of players from all over the world from different regions. So part of that process is obviously, if you've got a player in Korea, they can't play on European servers from where they are. So we then had to find a suitable place to accommodate them. And then you go through the whole process of, right, do you get a house? Do you then have to do their gaming setups, their electricity, their rent, their water, all the utilities? Or do you look to house them in some sort of gaming facility, which is what we've done. So for our 2 Koreans, they're out in Warsaw, in Poland. They have kind of a dedicated esports performance center there, which we use, and our 2 Koreans are based there. It also helps because one of our analysts is Polish as well and lives in Warsaw, so he can be there and be with the players. Obviously, it's a bit of a culture change for Koreans to go to Poland, so we make sure that there's somebody with them all the time. They're not there by themselves. Our head coach has been from Belgium to Poland and spent a month with them. We recently had a boot camp in London where we brought everybody together, so it's been really nice, and the language barrier hasn't been as evident as we first thought it would be. So yeah, it's a learning curve for me and some of our staff, but it's good. It's, considering how young we are, I think it's an opportunity that not many have at this stage.
I hadn't thought about it, but you also dealing with the extra obstacle of like being in the UK, which, I mean, Brexit and all this stuff, you have to like jump more hoops in order to do this. Make this possible. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason why they're not based in the UK. Visas, like, I think for the Koreans, they were able to get a visa to Poland within a week. it's either within a week or 10 days. And if they wanted to get a visa approved for the UK, it would take them 3 months. So,
Wow.
and even to the Isle of Man. But there was no sort of way of navigating around that to make it any quicker. And it just made more sense to base them somewhere else in Europe. That's why we opted for that country.
Yeah, I was still curious why you choose Poland, like why? And that it Carmen get it in the point. She knows. She was like, but what about Brexit? Like, okay, yeah, that topic.
Yeah, I think in the UK, sorry to jump in, I think in the UK there aren't, from what I know, too many dedicated esports performance centers that cater for, teams of large scales or huge groups of esports players. I'm sure that will come in time. But as of right now, most European countries will have one or two facilities that are well equipped.
That's really interesting. I would love to know more about the Korean culture, because I heard from our previous friends who have been there that normally they're quite similar, but they say no with us. So it would be really nice to see how it was like experience to meet them in person and to see how it was the culture.
It is a bit surreal. I mean, when I was a player, I was only surrounded by European players. I'd never played with Koreans. From a management perspective, they're very low maintenance. They just want to play and train, and then they'll just eat, sleep, and just repeat. They're very efficient in the way they go about things. Haru, one of our players, he won Worlds in 2017 with Samsung Galaxy. So he's been on
him?
Yeah, so he's been on the biggest stages in the world, and it's crazy to see how efficient they are when they work, and I think that then spreads amongst the other players on the team, which is great to see. Especially when we've got rookies that are like 19 years old, just starting to get their feet in the game, so they can learn a lot.
That's great to hear. So now I think, Carmen, we will start with this next topic. Do you make the honors?
Of course, this is actually that we've discussed, which is like changes in the regulations for each country. And honestly, rather than talking straight up about the potential changes, I want to hear what you think is going to happen in the near future, because I know in Spain there have been some talks with some politicians about what can we do to make this possible. I know in Germany they've got already some laws in place. We were talking about this before, so I want to know if you could the other way around, import a lot from another country, like for example, players becoming athletes under the law. What law would you import from another country and why? Let's start with Google, for example.
I think I'm just going to use France, where it's actually esports is seen as an actual job, regulated and all of that. So I think I would use France, to be honest.
Okay.
And I think that's also why it's grown so much in the last few years. Like, it's one of the countries that's grown the most.
I hadn't thought about it, honestly. When I think of top countries in this regard, I think of South Korea with the regulations. But I hadn't thought of France. Okay, good example there. Let's go with Anouk.
I don't really know. I mean, I don't have enough information from all of the countries to really pick one. I know at the beginning, the Nordics and Germany were ahead from everyone else. Now I wouldn't know exactly who's ahead and who has more options or real options that we could apply. So I'm going to copy him. And say France, because he seems to be informed. So.
Okay. And what about you, Josh?
This is going to sound like such a cop-out answer, but I was going to copy Guglielmo as well. I mean, I can only see it from this perspective. So I'm not clued. These two have obviously played CS:GO or CS Source or CS 1.6, whatever it is. I'm a League of Legends nut, and that's all I ever know. But if you look at our competitive regions, the NLC, which is the UK and Nordic regions, the viewership is far, far inferior to the LFL, which is the French league, the LVP, which is the Spanish league. But then you look at how much they've invested into those ecosystems. France has poured tens of millions and millions into this esports scene, and you can tell the production value is huge. It's a lot more sustainable, I think, in these regions than it is in the UK or Nordic countries. So yeah, I think we can definitely learn something from what France and what Spain are doing in those sectors, 100%.
So happy to hear. It's true that I heard that actually France has a own regulation, and that's why I was thinking that maybe Spain should have that example to try to regulate it and bring it here, and try to have like consider it as a sport. Not because we will always have this topic if it's sport is a sport or not. That's another thing. But I mean, especially for the players, sometimes it will be really nice to have that specific regulation because it will help them, for example, if you want to bring players from around the world and so on. Because in football, it's quite easy to see that, and it's often really easy to see, and it will be really nice to see in the esport ecosystem. But now I would like to know, other topic that I would like to ask is if you can tell me, because you have been working in his ecosystem for far long, even if you're young or not. I'm not going to start with that. But I would like to see what things you think it would be. As Anna said at the beginning, esport was different. We will say it was starting and now it's getting better. But if you can say things that could be much better, things that you will bring, and you say, for example, if you think it wouldn't be, you will have to see all the kind of contracts, or if you like to see all the kinds of choice in employment, what would you think you will like to have in the employment law? I'm so sorry. I think I didn't explain myself properly. I think this coffee doesn't have a lot of coffee, but I hope you understand what I was asking. If not, I will rephrase this. Don't worry.
I think I get the point you're trying to say.
Thank you, Josh.
In my personal opinion, I still think esports is still quite an immature industry. I think there's a lot of room to grow. We're still in those sort of early few years of growth, and maybe Googly and Anna will have a different opinion there. But I think for myself, I'd like to see more. This is purely from the UK and the Isle of Man, just more education around the esports industry and what the potential there is for sort of career opportunities. I don't think it's given enough of the limelight, and there's too much negative media attention around video gaming, the larger video game industry, whereas esports is completely separate to that. Obviously, there's links, but it needs to have its own ecosystem, ecosphere, and more positive media attention. Maybe put more stuff in mainstream media as well to educate the parents and the older generations, because that can hold back the industry quite a lot, in my opinion. And I think part of the reason why it's not on mainstream media is because of that generational thing. Those who are players and coaches nowadays, in 10, 20 years' time, they're going to be the ones watching mainstream media. So maybe it might have shifted by then to cater. I don't know. That's my opinion.
To be honest, I completely pretty much agree with him. Like, there's a lot that needs to be done still, and I think it's still a lot of misinformation, I would say, probably, or people that don't have enough information, or you don't get to see it the whole time on TV or stuff. Like the generation of the people that are going to school now, the kids that are 14, 16, 18, they probably pass more time on Twitch than watching TV, while their parents are still watching TV and they have no idea what's going on. I think that switch needs to happen. It's happening a bit maybe with like TV shows and stuff like that, and people are getting away more from the TV. But it would be nice if the switch happens, or if the things go together and they start working together, which I think is a step that people still need to do. In certain countries they've done it, in others they haven't, and I think it also shows in the countries where they've done it is where it's a bit more popular, people understand a bit more.
I'm aligned with Josh and with Gulli. But I think we've been smart enough to copy everything we could from traditional sports and entertainment. We're still doing it, but I think also, and that's pretty the same thing I said before, we need our own space. Esports needs its own space to grow and improve and try. And okay, we copied things from other ecosystems, other industries, whatever, but we need to have our own and still see that there's a huge like, well, how do you say that? Un campo, no? A ground, an empty field where you could do a lot of things still, and we should see it that way. The people that comes behind us as well, they need to come up with different and like creative ideas. We cannot copy everything that has happened already. That makes no sense. And I think we have the chance to do that in a very new industry like this one.
So thank you so much, guys. It's really nice and insightful because at the end, it's true. We have our esport is unique, and I think we are all agree of that. Even can compare us with traditional sport or not, but at the end, it's unique. It's something that you cannot see in other place.
Yeah, and now we are approaching the end of the show, so it's about to bring up the last topic, which is the evolution of esports. And I want to ask each one of you, how do you think esports are gonna evolve in these next 2 to 3 years, considering the previous evolution that we've gone through? So let's start with Google, for example.
I think it's actually a really hard question because every time I thought it would go in one way, I've been surprised of like a straight right angle the industry has taken in a good and in a bad way. So most of the times in a good way, I would say. What I would like to see it is more people that can actually make a living out of this, and the way it becomes more mainstream. In all the countries, more worldwide, I would say, is probably the most important thing, because right now there are certain heads, let's sort of say, where countries will take over, and I would like to see it a bit more widespread in general. I hope that's what the next 2 years will do.
Okay, Josh?
I think more sustainability for esports businesses. There's many esports scenes and ecospheres that are just not sustainable to run in, especially for smaller organizations where players will expect certain salaries, and for the business owners that just might not be feasible. There's definitely support schemes and ways in which to make it more viable for these companies, and I think that's only going to encourage more up-and-coming talent to take part and enable organizations to excel and grow over time. Certain countries, like I mentioned earlier, the Nordics have it a lot, have their head wrapped around it a lot more than maybe the UK and some other countries do. But there's still, in 2 to 3 years from now, I'd hope that we would have learned and taken a lot of those lessons and improved upon them. So hopefully we're in a better place by then.
Okay. And now, for last but not least, we've got Anouk.
For me, the creation of Squarebox was somehow working on the future of the industry. I truly believe that if we want to grow in a healthy way, we really need a lot more people prepared to work and to help making the industry bigger. And that's why I thought it was a good timing to make a project that helps people get into that point, because it's very nice that you get people from the outside. Like when I say the outside, I mean people that has nothing to do with esports and can bring their expertise. Like I don't know, a lot of professions that are helping our own industry to get bigger and more professional. But I also think that we need people that knows pretty well how it works from the inside as well, or a mix of both. And in these days, I'm seeing people that has been working, I don't know, in companies that have nothing to do with esports and are studying with us because they really want to do this. Either the mix, they want their company to be into esports, or they want to switch to something totally different. And I think the richer we are as a group, as a community, the better. And the more prepared we are, also it's going to grow bigger and better as well.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone. Of course, they have to follow Squarebox and the others of you as well, team, of course. And it's a nice, I will come to you if at the end one of the things he accomplished at the future, I will say, yeah, you won. Hopefully all of you, because
what's the prize?
You will see maybe another awards, esports awards, maybe. We will see. But thank you so much, guys, for coming here for this roundtable discussion. It has been really insightful, and I really appreciate all your time. And I hope our audience learned a lot from you guys. because that's been really, really nice to hear all your impressions of this ecosystem. And I know we have to say goodbye.
Yep.
But it has been really nice. And please wait a little bit because we will do our formal goodbye. But we will have to say goodbye ourselves to the audience. And thank you so much for coming. And I hope you have a really good time here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you very much.
Thank you.
You know.
Bye.
Bye. So Carmen, it has been really, really nice. It has been really insightful. I hope that our audience learned a lot from them. And if they have more questions or something, they will have to
I
ask them.
do.
Yeah, and please
I
follow
do.
them. All of that. You have more questions? Sorry,
Yeah,
Carmen.
one question. This is
Oh
for
no.
you. Is there going to be a second season for the Gamers Academy? Because I was really addicted to that one, honestly. I need to
So
have
I
another.
will bring. You wanted to bring it in and see if she answered?
No. I will keep it as a mystery. I'll get the answer when we go backstage. The people can't wait. If it ever happens, which I hope it does.
We will find out at the end. But thank you so much for everything, for being here. And this roundtable discussion has been really nice to be with you, Carmen, as well. And please follow our guests because they are amazing. All of them, Jos, Anna, and Gugli as well. They have amazing work. You can follow them in Twitter. You can follow them in LinkedIn. And please, if you like our content, please tap up. That would be really nice. And we see each other for the next week.
Okay. Jesus, see you.
See you. Bye.